This is the fascinating story of...
And now, the soul of Detroit.
Troubleshooter for the League of Planets organization, the law enforcement body for peace and justice in the celestial world, whose headquarters and center of operations are situated on the capital of all the planets, Planaria Rex. From Mercury to Pluto, wherever danger threatens the universe, you will find...
And now, the soul of Detroit.
Fighting for fair play. In a moment,
the soul of Detroit.
You asked interrogative question around my face. It's gone.
What are you doing?
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric back with another episode of The Soul of Detroit. And we have a very special guest this week we want to get right to. That is Macomb County Prosecutor Peter Lucido. Now, I have to tell you a little bit about my relationship with the prosecutor. We were frequent guests on Let It Rip. I left Fox 2, and that was it for me. And then and Pete keeps going on Let It Rip, and he has never been shy about letting it rip. And shortly after I lost my city council race, I got a call as I was out by the butchery picking up some stuff for Thanksgiving, and it was Pete Lucido. And he said, hey, I'm looking for someone to do my communications. Would you be interested? And I said, you know, I wasn't really comfortable holding my tongue for myself, so I don't think I'm going to be very good holding it for anybody else. And he said, you won't have to. Only once in my life have I not spoken, and it was advice I didn't like at the time. I took it, and I've regretted it ever since, and so I will always speak. And I said, you know what? Everybody says that until they get in trouble, and I used a more vulgar description of what getting in trouble looks like, and he said, that won't be me. And I said, you know what? Everybody says that until they get in trouble. And he said, I won't be that way. So that was 7 months ago, and I'm a big believer in action speaking louder than words, but Peter Lucido is here making an action, and he's going to speak as well, because there was a report that came out last week commissioned by Macomb County. I believe it was the executive, Marc who commissioned it, and Pete's going to talk to that in a minute, that interviewed some people in the prosecutor's office and found there were some folks who had some problems. They claimed that they were retaliated against, that their offices were moved around from, I guess, window views to interior offices with no windows, that some jobs were changed, that some people may have been addressed in a way that they found disrespectful. And there was even an allegation that the prosecutor may not be sensitive to issues of race. It was a report that was somewhat extraordinary because it was not conducted by the Human Resources Department of Macomb County, which they have. It wasn't conducted by anybody in the Corporation Council, which they have, which is really basically the county's law firm. And the folks who did this report for Butts Along, which is one of our white shoe law firms in Detroit, as far as I can tell, didn't really identify who was doing the research here. And so it's a somewhat extraordinary document. I wouldn't say that it is exactly an indictment, but it suggests that Pete Lucido is kind of the guy a guy who says what he's got to say, a guy who throws pretty sharp elbows. And it goes a little further to say that maybe he crossed the line. Well, that's a big wind-up to set Pete up to say, Pete, what do you say about all this? Because you're here, you're talking. I'm not saying you're in trouble. I'll just say there's some heat, but you are not backing down, and you are standing up and saying what you have to say.
Well, thanks, ML. And you know what? I won't back down. It's one of these situations where I took the job to come home to Macomb to clean up this office. And I mean, clean up everything. That would mean the individuals that were unindicted, co-conspirators that were part of the regime of Eric Smith, who is now in prison as a convicted felon. In addition, when I got to the office, there was only one administrative person left that was in Eric's administration. That means that, if you recall, all the administration was either charged with crimes and are awaiting trial or were awaiting trial when I got here. So I had no help at all, zero. I was all by myself up here. They tell me to put together a budget and give it to them within 4 months. They tell me that I don't need people after I've done an exhaustive study about how many people This office was shy. And if you recall, it was an absentee prosecutor up here, and it was only 4 floors, mind you, 3 if you're counting the 5th floor, because we take up, of the 9 floors in the administrative building, it's called. My executive is up on the 8th floor. My board of commissions is up on the 9th floor, and I occupy in the prosecutor's office floors 3, 4, and 5. So all this corruption was going on, 3 floors up from the executive. And the treasurer is 1 floor below the 3rd floor, which is on the 2nd floor. So the treasurer was down there, the executive was up there, the board of commissioners, and no one knew about corruption. So let's talk about that first of all, because I feel it very disingenuous when the executive's office takes and handles under the charter. They handle the finance department, they handle the HR department, they handle the planning, they handle the IT department, they handle the building. So that's everything going on. And if the finance department talks to the executive, and they've been doing this a long time, I think the executive's been in his office 12 years, you'd know that the money being spent was disproportional to the services. And where's the money coming from? And how is the books not being found when the finance department's saying these are offline books and the treasurer knows this? There's something weird about the whole thing. But that be it as it may, that's going to find its way finally through the court systems and done with. When I got into the place, I asked the legal upstairs, give me all the unindicted co-conspirators that either signed agreements with the government and or the attorney general. I want to know who these individuals are because they must be still employed, because I don't have everybody that should have been indicted in this case or brought to justice. In addition, which was unusual, they only gave me 3 of the 5 files that these people were under some type of investigation and or they're waiting till after the trial. Then I find out I did 3 more as the year goes by. How is this possible? The report was commissioned by the Board of Commissioners to get all of the checks as well as all of the accountings of this account. Yet that was turned over to the state police, and they claim they never got a copy of it. That seems unusual, doing criminal law as long as I have. So my background to come home was because I love Macomb County. My family and I have lived here all of our life. That means from the time I was born until probably the day I die, I'll live here in this county. And on top of it, a corrupt prosecutor's office doesn't really give a good name nor a face of justice. It's an injustice that was done. So when I came home, I had to do and work quick. I was writing up people under the union agreement, writing them up as to not doing their job in the way they have agreed to under the union agreement. And they didn't like that because no one really was accountable to anybody over here. The first task I was charged with was moving people into positions where I believed it was in the best interest of those that I serve and those that put me here. I used the best talent where it was necessary. I did things like get rid of chief of homicide position to give it now a unit of the best trial lawyers looking at the highest profile cases, calling it special unit for looking at those crimes with 4 prosecutors because of the amount of homicides that occur in Macomb now. I was practicing when there was only 1 homicide a year, and now we're up to over 40. In addition, the population has exploded in Macomb County, which talks about where the movement is. We are a very diverse county of different ethnicity, and I wanted to make sure that we showed that and displayed that in this office by hiring minorities and been able to produce that as the first time in the county history that I have had the most diverse group of prosecutors that this county has seen. On top of it, and I'll get to closing real soon, when you go ahead, my mom said, and you have to make an omelet, you got to break a couple eggs. And by breaking eggs, I mean I had to go ahead, write people up, suspend people, and they had their union grievances, which means that they have their day to vet out that which they believe that the injustice was done to them. And I have my right to speak as to why I did what I did and the consequences of called progressive discipline. Anybody that's in a union knows about that progressive discipline. So there was a few of them that actually went through that process, and it worked quite well, I think. A couple of them apologized to me saying, what I did was wrong, and I'll do better. And I said, I forget about the past, and I look to have a wonderful future moving ahead. Some of them didn't, and some of them want to retaliate. So making statements, but let's go through this.
Well, hold on, Pete. We got to set up some context here because you've covered a lot of ground here. Let's tell people about what you inherited as the prosecutor's office. There was a acting prosecutor there because Eric Smith was facing criminal charges at the state level and at the federal level. Now, you talked about the accounts. What the prosecutor is talking about here is Eric Smith was charged by Attorney General Dana Nessel with misusing drug forfeiture funds. And I believe, was the treasurer caught up in that as well? Was it
No,
was
the treasurer
Miller?
was the one that it brought out the fact that the accounts did not and were not online with the treasury,
okay.
which is, yeah.
So there are some folks in the county offices who were in trouble. And so those cases are being prosecuted. Some of Smith's top assistants were being prosecuted and have since reached guilty pleas in that case. Simultaneously, the feds are investigating Eric Smith for obstruction. I think what ended up being an obstruction of justice case because he and a couple of prosecutors in that office were involved in some campaign work. Well, there's nothing illegal about that except when you have people who say, I'm charging you $20,000 for my campaign consulting, but I'm going to give you a $15,000 rebate, and really didn't do that much consulting. There was also some issues where there was a businessman in Macomb County who was, quote unquote, renting office space to Eric Smith, but in fact was just being paid from the campaign for rent and then kicking the money back to the prosecutor. So one of those prosecutors who was involved in this scheme was one of the leading trial prosecutors, and he was doing a consulting business on the side. I discovered who it was through some reporting, and we exposed that in the Detroit Free Press. There was another prosecutor, a more junior prosecutor, who the feds were looking at, but who did, as far as we know, did not cooperate with Eric Smith in his scheme to basically kick back some campaign money that he said he was paying for consulting. So the office that Pete Lucido inherited was a mess. But we should also note that it was Marc Hackle who turned the feds and Dana Nessel onto Eric Smith, so he was somewhat active in trying to say, we got to clean up this prosecutor's office. Now, he thinks there's a problem with the current prosecutor, so maybe he just is inclined to think there's a problem in the prosecutor's office, but we should point out that Marc Hackle was crying foul with what was going on in Eric Smith's office for quite a while. So now this report comes out, and it alleges that you're kind of moving people around as you will. They say that you're disregarding the rules. You say that's not the case, but there's also some stuff.
Let me make it very clear to everyone. The prosecutor's office, the individuals that work here are sworn in by the prosecutor. The prosecutor doesn't even have to swear them in. So that's why I asked for, give me a debriefing, because as you've indicated, the backdrop was dismal, to say the least.
It was a mess.
Complete corruption and a mess. Walking in here with, cobwebs and dirts and explosions that have happened in here. And I'm asking who else in here has these issues that I do not want to swear in, because they would make it very difficult for me to do my job. But more importantly, very wrong for the public to accept these individuals that were already a part of a public and a political enterprise of corruption. Now, they were not very truthful with me. They gave me a few files, and at the time we had pressed it. I wrote a letter to the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'm asking who else is a target of the investigations in this office. So I want to know who these individuals are, because I have a duty to protect the citizens of Macomb County by coming home and doing my job. And they didn't respond. Nothing from anybody. The Corporation Counsel, we asked them. And again, with just a few files, the HR department. Remember, who's in charge of all this? The executive. He has full reign over the 5 different departments. Who I have reign over is this. I am told by HR, when we've had these disagreements with employees or in violation of the policies of the office and or the union agreement, when we went to hearings on these, it's due process. It's fundamental fairness and due process, which means I get to tell the individual what they did wrong. They get to say why they did or didn't do it wrong. And there is a landing spot on the what's called the discipline actions and how long. And, sometimes it's a knock on the knuckle, and sometimes it goes down to suspension or termination. In my case, I have an absolute right to put anybody in any office. I have an absolute right to put them in any position, so long as there is like principal trial lawyer 5. There's certain qualifications for grants that have to be a principal trial lawyer 5. I have absolute authority and distinction over that because I've been elected by the people to serve them and put the best talent I know where it needs to be to do the job to effectuate the enforcement of the law of this county. And no one's going to get in my way. And that's just the way it's going to be. And if you think you are, by trying to manipulate or make something up, an uncredible statement about me, have at it. You have your union process that you agreed to in the bargaining, and that's the way we do business. To sanction a report and get a private law firm, as you've indicated, there's no policy, there's no authority, there's no validity. And the lawyer that I had was an HR specialist who reached out to the law firm and said, where do you find the authority? Who gave you this authority? Where, what were you engaged to do? Oh, no, we want to talk to Pete. We want to talk to Pete about what? He's a constitutional officer in an elected position. You don't have the right to do any of this stuff. And Pete's not going to say anything because you don't have authority. And that was pretty much the end of it. And the stuff that they're arguing or complaining about should have gone through the grievance process as HR did in the past with those individuals. And then somebody derailed and came up with a great idea to make a smear report. And that's just not the way it's going to be played out. When it's all said and done, this was taxpayers' dollars. This was wasteful spending and unauthorized by any rule of law or anything in the statute. And we're going to have accountability one way or the other for that report.
Well, it's interesting, obviously you're a guy who doesn't have any problem speaking up for himself, but you didn't talk to these investigators. And I wonder why you didn't just sit down with them and say, that's BS, that's BS, that's BS, that's BS. Yeah. Any more questions?
Good point.
I mean, it's sort of out of character for you to hold your tongue. Yeah.
That's not out of character for me, though, to listen to the HR lawyer that had sent the letters to the HR department here as well as to the law firm. And the law firm's not giving back any authority, as well as not being able to give any reason that they saw that this works outside the scope of the union policy and procedure. The attorney that I had said, Pete, you don't have to respond to any of this. You're not going to, and here's the reason why. By not following the union grievance procedures, they've left these individuals high and dry because the union doesn't have to represent these individuals. They went up there to file a grievance and they talked them out of it, or they solicited them. And we find out now that most of these individuals were solicited by the nature of two of them that we went to a grievance proceeding. They took their licks as far as suspensions from this office, and moving forward, they were asked to see if anybody else had maybe any issues. The fact that I went ahead and moved an office, or the fact that I said you're going to take this position, was for good reason. And the people put me here to do that. So for me to waste my time when I'm trying to prosecute, get a corrupt office back in order, and best of all, making sure that I have the proper tools to do the job by getting these individuals, it's my belief that these individuals should exercise their union rights by grieving the situations that they claim. Now they may have blown a statute. Now they may have disappointed themselves because there won't be a fair, open, due process hearing. It was whatever the investigator wanted to put in writing. Why didn't the investigator investigate everything by calling and talking to everybody and not just the ones solicited? Why didn't the investigator go ahead and see by way of how the report leaked? I still want to know how that report was given to MERS all the way up in Lansing. And I want to know how it got from the attorney here in Macomb County to the Detroit News. who claim that they got it. Why did they get it? A confidential, private report that HR's policy has been violated. And we asked HR and the legal counsel here, please do an investigation as to how this leak occurred, because you're jeopardizing not only the rights of these individuals that work here under the union agreement, but you're also jeopardizing the rights of the individuals that work here in the prosecutor's office. Somebody leaked it out of the HR department and may have been at the behest of somebody who's in charge.
So you got a leak that you need to check on, but there's some things in this report, regardless of whether they did it the right way or not, that evoke some criticisms that you've faced before, namely the way you interact with women. There's one of the findings here that says, based on interviews with multiple people, that you treat women different than you treat men, and they suggest that you take some sort of sensitivity training, both for your conduct towards female employees and towards minorities. Do you plan to take those classes, or what do you say to this? Because this isn't the first time somebody's thrown this at you.
Yeah, that's interesting. First of all, there's no policy or procedure regarding that particular statement. In fact, it's disingenuous. There's been no findings of any of those. Again, they're utilizing, women and or race to weaponize against the prosecutor that they had fault with because they didn't like the fact that they had jobs that were changed. They didn't like the fact that they had to do it a different way. Remember, they worked for a corrupt prosecutor. Remember, they had no accountability. All of a sudden, you make them accountable and they go ahead and make up a story. I'm grounded in the fact that who I am and what it is that I did, and that's why their due process is available through a grievance proceeding. They all of them know what that means, how to file a grievance, how to go ahead and do it. If they felt that aggrieved, ML, why did they walk upstairs and file that grievance? Why not bring it to the attention of those that would be able to protect them? I'll tell you why. This was all about nothing to do with any wrongdoing. It had to do with political smear, and as quickly as he can after a lawsuit was filed here in this county. You don't follow the rules. I get it. There's a way of going ahead and redressing the wrong. Why weren't the rules followed in this case? And that's what my lawyer is done, is asked to see where the rule was, what authority, and under what authority do they have any right to make any recommendation. Here's the real cold reality. You got one side of the story, and that's not how a court works, and that's not how due process and fundamental fairness is done in the union grievance proceedings.
So there's 16, I guess they're current and former employees that filed some kind of complaint in this report. Are you suggesting they all worked for the previous administration too?
Okay, no, I'm not suggesting any of that. What I am suggesting is there's not 16. That's the first thing you should realize. Number two, okay. There was 2 of them that went through a grievance proceeding that ignited this. Number 3, if you look real closely at the report, some of these arguments that they make or allegations that were taken out of context was when I wasn't even doing my job. One of them is when I had not even been sworn in. So why didn't they bring that out in the report and said, Lucido wasn't even sworn in yet? How can you even make a comment about him before he even gets here? You check that out. You guys are smart. You know what you're doing. Why don't you look at the one that was not even generic to what my responsibilities was as a prosecutor? At one of my birthday functions that I hold annually, a father and his daughter came who were close friends of my family. And that father and daughter are appalled, and you ought to put them on the show because they said they make statements about my daughter. They make statements that the father, right with you there, Pete, unfortunately, they don't know the relationship of my family and yours. And that happened to be a black family. And all of a sudden now, Pete's what? A racist? About what?
Yeah, it's funny. We were actually, or I was talking to someone before the show about that, and it kind of got to this point where it's like, well, who is offended here? Is it the person that it was actually directed at or the action at? And that's, in going through this report, I'm trying to figure out, are these people that were upset to what you said to them or what you said to other people?
That's just it. And then you could look at the beginning. I mean, anything that they didn't want to do here, they have a remedy, and that remedy is under an agreement. I sign a contract to buy something or do something. I got to follow through. When I don't, I violate the agreement, and there's a process that's followed. And I'm not going to overly think this. Here's the reality. If you got something, bring it. But if you don't try to make it up. It doesn't sound for good reading anymore. I guess it's what's left in the mind of a reader.
Yeah.
But did you ever get Lucido's side of the story? Did you ever sit down after these allegations? And you know what? We have a confrontation clause in the Constitution. That confrontation clause is edified in the union agreement. The reason why Lucido should be face-to-face with the accuser is because there's witnesses that Lucido may produce and or information as it relates to written or technological to bring and said, well, doesn't this say this in the contract? Yeah. Don't I have the right to move your office? Yeah. Don't I have the right to put you where it is? Yeah. So what is your beef?
Pete, aside from like the due process angle on it, did anybody ever go, hey, that's not cool what you said there? Did that ever happen? I'm just wondering, like in the moment, did that ever happen?
These are lawyers. You'd think that they would want fundamental fairness.
Yeah.
You would think that they want it. These are prosecutors that are supposed to uphold the law and took an oath of office to follow the Constitution and uphold the laws of the state. I mean, if they're not going to do that, then I wonder who's represented. But most of the people that had some problem with the leadership style and the way it was have left here because they found fault in themselves by saying, well, what am I here for? Why, if you don't want to work, don't think you're going to stay here because you're going to work. Well, I come here every morning. I get here early and I leave the latest at this office. And I got to tell you, that's how I did my practice 30 years. That's why I was so successful. And I had the same women and the same lawyers that moved out of there, moved on. And you can ask them. That would be the core of it. I worked with Pete 30 years. Yeah, he's straightforward. Yeah, he's direct. But he's fair. You go tell him why he's not fair and he'll listen to you.
Well, you seem like a very my way or the highway type of guy. And some people would prefer to have a more collaborative workplace, something where there may be some other opinions considered. It sort of sounds like Lucido's law coming down, and your response to those folks is, if you don't like it, there's the door. I mean, is that necessarily the best way to run a large office with a lot of different personalities and people who may have different styles? And I'll just tell you, as a union representative, I've worked with a lot of strong reporters, a lot of people whose job is to ask questions and to take heat. And they'll sit there and they'll let somebody in the office beat them up, and then they'll come to my office and say, hey, I got to file a grievance, or so-and-so was mean. I was like, why didn't you say something? It's like, no, I just didn't feel comfortable doing it in the workplace environment. It's one thing to fight everybody outside the office, but a lot of people would rather have peace at home.
ML, I got over 140 people here. It's the second largest department in the county. On top of it, it's the second largest office in the county because I'm a countywide elect, which means I work for the people. On a softer note, they have union stewards that are in place here. They got a president over here. They got a secretary. They came to me and they said, Pete, is there any chance that we can revisit some of these things? We did. On top of it, when they felt that somebody may have been aggrieved, they talked to me. How about this? Instead of writing them up in the file, I gave them a verbal. Okay, I'm always fair about the progressive discipline because maybe they didn't take me too serious, but I said the next time they're getting a write-up and it's going in their file. I won't let somebody do something disingenuous where it's going to cause another problem in this office. I had a broom, I had a dustpan, I'm cleaning it up, I'm throwing out the trash, and you know what? No, I'm not that way. You come in and talk to Pete. I interviewed every single employee in the prosecutor's office. In the first 3 weeks I was here, I want to know who they were, what they've done, what they want to do, what job that they think they want to be at. Do they want to move to another part of the office? And if so, why? That was what I had. And I critiqued everything that was going on and asked them at that time, what do you think will make you happy? Because if you're not happy, I'm not going to be happy. And I moved a lot of people where they wanted to go. You could ask them. If the person who never signed this report, the author of it, that's interesting. A lawyer who does all this investigation for some money and finds out he's not signing the report and putting his name to it. And he's no longer with the firm, incidentally. I don't know if you know that. Kind of scooted out of there the day the report was due because he called my lawyer and he indicated to my lawyer, can I interview Pete next week any day because I'm leaving after that?
Wait, he wanted to come work for you?
No, hell no.
Okay.
No.
was going to say it's
No, he went on to another law firm, the same lawyer that was doing this thing, but he's no longer at that law firm. Isn't that an interesting dialogue? He doesn't sign the report either. There's a lot of questions to be asked here about this report, because I got to tell you, if you start to check the boxes and said, did you go through your grievance proceeding in the first two? Yes. And you were found that even HR, this is the critical part, even HR agreed with Lucido that the actions taken by the employee and the actions taken by the elect are consistent and are affirmed, basically. This action is consistent. They gave me letters I have that says I'm allowed to change the offices, as well as I'm allowed to change the positions. That's in the best interest of this office and the elect, who has complete authority and autonomy. No, I gave people a chance, even with posting some of the stuff, and indicated who wants to take a shot at this. Because I knew what my vision was: put 2 lawyers in every courtroom, do the best they can with what we have to work with, bring in some more people, because this place did not have the right number of staff with the 1 million people almost here in Macomb County. And the amount of crimes are magnified because of the internet and social media. There's no secret in this. And we were backlogged because of COVID. Let's not forget that, ML. You know what, Marc? We had COVID, and you know what? It slowed the court systems down. Now, when they open those doors, we have a surge that we got to take care of.
Well, and to that point, okay, I wanted to ask you this because there was a little bit of controversy regarding that piece of shit, Amani Davis, I think his name was, that killed Officer Lauren Courts, and you made a Facebook post about, hey, we don't have enough prosecutors. There's a backlog, and you were really spirited about that, and then. I've been saying it, Marc, though, since the day I walked in through the doors. I said it, and I went up to the executive's office. I went and talked with the executive's staff, meaning all of his deputies and stuff. I talked to the board of commissioners. I said, we got a problem here. If you want me to do the job properly, first of all, let me show you. And I invited each of the county commissioners into the office. There's 13 of them. Walked them around, showed them the warrant department where the police bring in the warrants. The body cameras that are all now on digital. We have CD-ROMs, man. It's unbelievable. We got like the Flintstones over here that we're working with. And I said, this has got to get done. We got 28 law enforcement agencies. We're the 3rd largest in the state. Well, that's what I was going to ask. That's why
wait. My discovery unit is backed up to give the discovery to the defense lawyers, who I feel get all the information, not just some. No Brady violations under Lucido. We win them fairly, we lose them squarely. 2, I didn't have enough help as far as clerical to type the warrants, and still don't. And we're 80 to 150 at any one given time backed up. Those are out of custody, everybody. So there's the ones that they run in yelling fire the police and said, this one's got to get signed now. We got to get this guy off the street. 2, in custody means we got 72 hours to type up the warrant, look at all the information, and get it served so that it can get, a bond hearing. Last is out of custody. So anytime I got 80 to 150 out of custody warrants sitting there. I think Wayne County's got like 3,000 to 4,000.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. It could be more. And I know Oakland, they're about 2 weeks behind. We're about 5 to 7 days behind. How can we rectify this? I asked for 8 part-time, temporary clericals. I've got the money in my budget, and they denied me. How would you feel about all this?
Oh, I'd be livid.
I do it with my own law firm. Marc, I do it with my own law firm. If I needed the help, you go out and get the help. This is what the people expected of me. But you know what? I'm asking upstairs, why does other departments get the money, meaning that's sitting in my budget, that hasn't been spent, and you're saying no? The only thing I can think of is retaliation, because winning the lawsuit 3-0 against the executive, saying you're violating the charter. In fact, the court said, in writing, unlawful impoundment of the prosecutor's money. Unlawful.
So, Pete, I want to come back to this report. You mentioned some hiring stuff, and there was one allegation in this report that you hired somebody who is married to somebody at the Attorney Grievance Commission, and there was a complaint filed against you with the Attorney Grievance Commission, and the report insinuates that it's possible that this hiring was done to make that attorney grievance commission complaint go away. Now, there's no specificity as to what was in the attorney grievance commission complaint. There's nothing that really talks about when person was hired and when the complaint was dismissed. Can you put some of those pieces together for us? Because this is one of these things, when it's laid out on paper, you see, oh, well, A plus B may equal C. I presume you think it equals an F, but tell us yourself.
Well, it does equal an F, and here's why. 3 law professors filed a grievance against me saying that I made statements about if the governor broke the law, I would charge her as anyone else. And everybody knows my passion as it related to the nursing homes. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows my passion, including, individuals in the media, because I am the one that got the bill finally signed and said, you're not going to mix healthy people from unhealthy people and spread COVID to them because they already got a compromised immune syndrome at their ages. So, I mean, that mission, yes, I did take up. But if we
that's the complaint. The complaint was that you...
Hold on, that I made a statement that even the governor is not above the law. And if the governor violated the policy and or the law, then she would be subject to, just like any other lawyer, because she's a lawyer, and citizen, subject to charges. Well, these 3 law school professors, 2 from out of state, I mind you, nobody in the state except one, Larry Dubin, he files a grievance against me. He claims that I violated my office as prosecutor, as a minister of justice, because making a statement like that. So I brought all of the information, put it in a binder, wrote up the response, sent it off to the grievance commission. And at that time, I didn't even know Mike Getz, who was a law school classmate of mine that I saw maybe twice in the last 30 years. Twice. And I'm over 30 years. I've been practicing over 30. So we were classmates before that. I knew Mike because he ran for prosecutor in Oakland County. I knew his wife because she also ran for prosecutor in Oakland County. They both worked in the prosecutor's office over there for over a decade. And he also worked up north. I don't know where else she worked. I know she was in private practice for a while. When I interviewed, the case was already dismissed, done with, over with. And even Larry Dubin, this is the killer right here, the F portion of the program. Larry filed with the Grievance Commission and notified the Michigan Supreme Court that Michael Getz and Pete Lucido were friends, and that's why it got dismissed. Michael Getz has a Supreme Court letter that says Michael recused himself from the Lucido case, gave it to other grievance commissioners for determination. Mike didn't even read the complaint. When he saw the name, he gave it to somebody else so it wouldn't cause any appearance of impropriety. But had everybody put that in the report, you would have found out that even Larry Dubin withdrew his complaint, everyone, and said, okay, that's fair. Okay. And it's done. Now his wife, wait a minute, his wife, she's over 30 years as a lawyer, most experienced person that interviewed. I have a chance to get her for a song, which means cheaper than what she should be receiving. She likes being a prosecutor. She has been for years. And if you talk to her chief of the unit, she's the best person up there. Right now, my chief has said, I would love to have everybody like this who can walk in day one, trial ready, and understands each and every plea bargain that's out there because of her 20 years plus as a prosecutor and 10 years in private practice.
Okay. And for what it's worth, the Attorney Grievance Commission administrator has also said that there was no conflict, that in fact Mike Getz did not handle this case. So there's 2 people that now if you'd talk to these guys from but so long, you could have told them that yourself. But I understand.
But again, I could go through each and every allegation with you today and explain each one. Had they done what they were supposed to do, my own county, the people that are supposed to know the law, okay? And that would be the attorney for the county and also the HR director at the time, who is also the lawyer. He would have never taken this like this because sitting across from me, I would have said, why don't you have Mr. Getz come in? He'd probably explain to you what he did and how he did it. I can't tell you, but I know one thing. If you look at my responses and you look at everything, it's clear. My statements were taken out of context about the governor, and as such, they try to twist things and turn things. Even the law school ethics professor tried to say that I did something wrong, when in fact, I didn't. They couldn't cite a rule that I did something wrong.
And that complaint has been dismissed, I take it.
It was not only dismissed, they said, look, just as a bit of advice, you're in a position right now held to a standard to go ahead and be very cautious as to what you say. Well, I already knew that. I've been an attorney. I know what the rules are. The rules are, if you're going to be on tape like we're doing now or video, you have to be very cautious on how you say it and the context you put it in. And the problem is I'm a straightforward, kind of guy about it. You may not like the way I say it, but this is how God made me, and my mom loves me for it.
Well, that's what I was wondering, Peter. In regards to this this memo that came out in this report, is it going to have any kind of chilling effect in how you act around the office? Are you going to start wearing like oven mitts when you take pictures with friends? Are you going to do anything like that?
Here's the reality. Everybody knows who I am in this office by this point. They've had me for 18 months. Yeah, at the end of this, and I've been calling them in. I have an open door policy. Eric used to keep the doors locked. And the former prosecutor never allowed me up here. My doors are wide open. Whatever I'm talking about, it's right here in the office. And I don't want to see it any other way because I treat them all like family members, and I do. I say to them, you got a beef with me, come in and talk it out with me. Don't consider me your boss that minute when you're trying to tell me what you want to say to me. And these people will indicate this to you. If you call one of them and said, Lucido, it says he's got an open door policy. Is that true? Yeah, it's wide open. We can hear him down the hallway. Because I'm loud, I'm Italian, and it's who I am.
You know what, though? I got to tell you, when I read this report, there's one thing that if I were working for you, I would probably give you this advice is you may need to be careful around the ladies because they say they have 9 women here or 9 people who saw you say something around women that could be interpreted as offensive, even if the women themselves were not offended by it. And are you worried at all that
No.
If this is just who you are, if this is, hey, this is Pete, take him or leave him, that let's put this in the best possible light for you, that people are just misinterpreting things. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's got to be a big distraction. I mean, you got a lot of energy, but how much energy do you want to use fighting every single person in the room?
I don't, but at the same time, we had 2 individuals that were up here when I first got here. And those 2 individuals sit right at the front gate, the door, when they come in the prosecutor's office to see the prosecutor. And I call them the dynamic duel. Dynamic duel, double D. I used the word double D when I said my double D team, dynamic duel. I even said it that way. They both knew it. One said it sounded like, they were talking about maybe my breast. The other one said, absolutely not. From the beginning, he called us the dynamic duel team. The ones that took care of the front gate, made sure that the gate was taken care of. And she indicated it had nothing to do with breast. But people have their own idea and their own agenda. And the one that said that, she's no longer working here because she did something so wrong that gave her a reason to leave. How's that?
Well, the baseball team in Cleveland changed their name to the Guardians. You might want to think about calling those 2 folks in front of your office the Guardians. They seem to be working out better for those guys.
I grew up with Batman and Robin. They called them the dynamic duel. I'm sorry, but I felt the name of my Batman and Robin here at my front gate.
Okay, well, just don't hire Batgirl because I think it's only going to get worse for you. She wears a tight outfit as well.
But I told you, Mel, if you want to come and do some journalism work, I know the Free Press picked you up, but I do need a good communication director once the Supreme Court, because my executive found that 3 in the Court of Appeals wasn't enough. Unanimous decision published, and if anybody doesn't know what that means, it means it's the law of the land now. Look, a charter has to work the same way the government works, which is you go and you get the votes by the board. If you don't like it, you veto it. And if you don't like that, then you go back to the board and see if 2/3 override. I had a unanimous on the board of commissioners. Lucido needs these positions. It's important for him to operate the office. We've been through the office. Physically, the commissioners have been through the office, talked to APAs, which are assistant prosecuting attorneys. They've talked to me. They've talked to the staff. They went around everywhere and saw what I've been doing, how I've changed the culture in here, made conference rooms so that they could sit down with the victims and their families and have meaningful discussions and dialogue to make them ease now that it's been so long that the courts have held their case and haven't been open since the COVID. We've got cases that are seriously in jeopardy because of the time and, witnesses leave the state or minds fade. It's tragic. But at the same time, I know one thing. I know how to run an office because I did it 30 years in the private enterprise and was extremely successful. And when you come over here, you're treating it like private enterprise. I'm sorry, but look, if I wouldn't spend the dollar on my own business, I wouldn't be spending it on the prosecutor's business. I'd be saving the money, doing it more efficiently, more effectively, and a better result for the victims.
Well, I don't think you need a spokesman. You're speaking everything you got to say. But if I get canned, maybe we'll grab lunch. But I appreciate, the other guy who offered me a spokesman job was Kwame Kilpatrick. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that says about my value in the marketplace. But we
Mark,
appreciate.
what do you think, Mark? Is he marketable? You think he's marketable?
Can he still do the podcast?
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, sure. Give him another thing to do.
I'll be a guardian.
You got nothing but time.
But you're right. Maybe choosing how. But again, I'm an open book. I mean, what you see is what you get. And unfortunately,
well, they're throwing that book at you.
Yeah. Well, guess what? They can have it right back at them too. The reality is, I don't need to keep making fights. But if somebody would have followed the process and they didn't do it because there was political motivation not to. That's
sure,
what it was.
But here's one of the things with these reports. Everybody has a motivation, and that's but sometimes, and I find this in reporting a lot, somebody will call me about a story, and I'll check it out, and the story isn't what they think it is, or the story is completely different than what they think it is. But when I get done with the process, I've found something valuable worth sharing. And it sounds like in this report, you find whatever the motivation was, however it was conducted, you find nothing whatsoever of value. And when I read it, I look at a couple things and I say, well, maybe he might want to just in a quiet moment think about some of that and just say, okay, let me ponder at least. But it sounds like you're using this report to start a fire.
There's a reflection of everything that people make criticism about me. And not everybody, God didn't create everybody as equal as they think. And here's the reason why. The threshold for what's called a tolerance of, stress and pain and everything else that you go through in here because of the stories we hear and how people died or how a victim has been abused or tortured, it's not pretty. And you got to be a little bit calloused to be in this office to begin with because of the nature of the beast that we're dealing with out there. But truth be told, I do reflect on everything and how the outcomes are because those victims and their families live on with the pain. No one stands up, Mark or ML, and says, hey, pick me. I want to be the victim. I want to be the victim. No, they are thrusted upon them at a time where they're saying, why me? Why did this happen to me? So I'm dealing with families that lost a mother or a father to a murder. And I bring them in and I sit them down and I talk to them and I say, what can I do as the prosecutor to make your world a little brighter? Because I know that you're never going to get over this. But I know that whatever I can do today for you and your family may make a difference in how you go ahead and heal. That's it. That's it.
Well, Pete, you said you would never stand down and you would always speak out. I think you've proven both of those today and will again. So we appreciate you making the time. I will be out in Macomb County. We'll catch up. And I think there's some stuff in Macomb County once we get through these elections that we should probably be poking around in.
I like that. You know what? Every once in a while, it's good to go ahead and make people accountable for their actions. In my case, I make them accountable all the time for their actions. But somebody who's out there doing something disingenuous to rattle and rally people because of whatever the case may be, don't do it this way. Follow the rules. It makes it a lot easier to play the game. I'll talk to you later, guys. Love coming on your podcast for one reason. Say it like it is. Be who you are, and God will take care of the rest. Love you both.
Thanks, Pete. Good seeing you.
Thanks, Pete.
Take care, fellas.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
I'm not sure Pete is reflecting on any of the findings in that report, but it is an interesting report, and we will be looking into this deeper. Of course, Chris Hall, the Detroit Free Press, has written about this already. I know the Macomb Daily and some other media have been talking about this. I don't think this issue is going to go away.
The prosecutor, by the way, just had the best Zoom exit I've seen in a long time. He literally just got up and walked off and just left it open. Oh, I'm done. I'm out of here.
The best exit.
He's an interesting cat, man.
Best exit I've ever seen was LaDuff, myself, Sam Riddle, maybe Steve Hood. We were all on Let It Rip, and things were getting crazy. And in the middle of it, Charlie just got up and walked off camera.
Doesn't sound like him.
It was, and he's just like, yeah, I'm out. Like, I was like, did that just happen? I was like, yeah, that's LaDuff.
Usually, you just have that awkward moment where they're just staring and they don't know. Do I leave now? Are they going to kick me out? He's just like, I got work to do. I'm out of here. Someone else handle it.
Yeah, and I was in the midst of battle, and I thought about it as I saw him walk off. I thought, you know what? Nothing anybody's going to say is going to change anything. Probably the best use of our time would be to get the hell out of here, but so be it. Well, that's Pete Lucido. Certainly, Marc Hackle has opinions on these things. We may follow up with him if he wants to talk about this. But there's a lot going on in Macomb County, and one of the real concerns I think I would have if I was a Macomb County resident is how much energy is being spent fighting inside that building as opposed to fighting the people outside that building who may have broken the law.
You know what?
Lucido says he can do both. He's certainly got a lot of energy. I guess time will tell.
When I think of Macomb, okay, I think of Warren and I think of Mayor Fouts pops in my head, right? And Mayor Fouts has had some...
Mayor Fouts is joining us now on Zoom. Oh, no, it's Sean Windsor.
That's just Sean. He's not nearly as handsome. Yeah. Handsome, but not nearly as handsome as Fouts. No, but what I was going to say is the people of Warren love him, regardless of what he has said or some of the things he has done with employees that may or may not be romantically linked to him. You know why?
Obie Selma Flair has done a lot to hurt his reputation.
But you know why? Because they like the stuff he's gotten done. It's almost like a football coach. Hey, if you win games, do whatever you want to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we see that in politics all the time. We'll forgive this if you can do this for us.
Yeah.
And that's just how it works sometimes.
Well, we'll see. Lucido's still relatively new in that office, and as you pointed out, there has been some controversy about how quickly they issued a warrant to bring a guy into custody who wasn't brought into custody, who did end up going and shooting a Detroit police officer. There's paperwork, there's backlog. What Lucido's talking about with these courtrooms, Wayne County they're just getting destroyed because the Wayne County courts were so closed or so slow.
It seems to be a disaster.
Yeah, this is happening all over the place, but this is one of, and Lucido said that he's got money in his budget to hire these folks, which if he hadn't said that, I would have asked him, boy, you're a Republican saying you need to hire more people for government. You don't hear that very often, but it sounds like his problem is we got money in the budget and they just won't let us spend it. So I would encourage the prosecutor and the executive in Macomb County, if at all possible, to find a way to work together, because this does seem to be affecting the quality of life for people in Macomb County. And of course, we all, John F. Kennedy said, breathe the same air. So when something goes wrong in Macomb County, sometimes that dust cloud blows over into Wayne County, and somebody like our
we lose a good officer.
Yeah, Officer Counts is lost. So we really got to get this stuff buttoned up. But I think we're at Geek of the Week, and
just in time for Sean to join in.
Yes, he's not our choice as Geek of the Week.
Could be.
Just because, we don't want to have like 163 Pete, because this is our 163rd
by the way,
episode.
Good guest. I love the God complex stuff. You know what I mean? Or at least I'm chosen by God because I can handle more stress to help out these people.
I would just say the prosecutor.
What is going on? That's what we want.
The prosecutor's not racked with self-doubt. I'll say that.
No, confidence. We'd like a little confidence, like Marc. Marc has some confidence.
I have zero.
That's a nice level for me.
I would think a lot of elected people are brimming with overconfidence. I just think that's kind of politics.
Well, you got to be confident to run, and if you're overconfident, you lose. So confidence is definitely part of the equation.
Well, it's important, and you got to give it up when you say, "Hey, we're not all created equal. I have been given all these abilities, therefore I can handle this." So at least he's being honest.
Well, we didn't get to that question of on the scale, are you one of the gifted or the challenged? But I think that question may be rhetorical. our Geek of the Week comes from a little TikTok video that I would like us to play for you. If you're watching us on YouTube, which we encourage you to subscribe to YouTube channel ML Elric. That way, we kind of start at a different time every week. If you subscribe and hit the alert button, you will know when we go live, and you will know when we have new content, and you'll be able to watch for yourself little videos like the one we're about to play now.
Sorry to bother you. Is it okay if you can just hold these?
It's an old lady having lunch. Some young whippersnapper hands her flowers.
Have a lovely day.
And walks away without the flowers. So she's just stuck there going, okay, what do I do with these flowers?
Yeah, it looks like she's moved by it, like, oh, how sweet. And then she puts the flowers on the other side of the table. So we're melding the Great Debate and Geek of the Week because this is a very popular TikTok video. The person who did it is a social media, I don't know if he's an influencer, but he's a personality. This is how he does his thing. And this woman is now saying that she was dehumanized by this, that she was taken advantage of.
She's a prop.
And not only that,
she's a prop.
Not only that, but the flowers were a drag. She took the bus there, and she didn't want to carry those damn flowers home with her. So
that was actually what I got when I saw the video. I thought like she just looked mad when she put the flowers down. She's like, I got to carry this shit now.
Yeah, thanks for the damn flowers. So my question is, who's the geek? Is it this kid who may or may not be taking advantage of just a member of the public to try and further his own ambitions? Or is it an old woman, a woman, let's not put age into it, just some stranger who is given some flowers, and instead of saying, oh, that's nice, I got some flowers, is now saying, you piece of crap, what are you doing dragging me into your whole online world?
It's the kid. The only reason he did that was for TikTok clout.
Well, she certainly...
And honestly, what did he do anyway? He gave her flowers?
Yeah.
It's just fucking weak. I don't know.
Flowers are not cheap, but, I am. But, Shawn, what do you think?
Well, I don't blame her for feeling that way, I guess. Or maybe it's just a generational thing. And just folks that age don't want random people coming up with their cell phones and making memes out of them or viral moments out of them. How about that?
Well, I think somebody a third person must have been shooting that just from...
Yeah, from a
distance.
I mean,
it's a two-shot. You can't be in a two-shot without your arm stretched out there, because you're holding your phone, or unless you got the Huel Perkins selfie stick. But that didn't look like that.
Is that really a random... First off, it's not random. Is that really an act of kindness?
Yeah.
No.
So I'm inclined to say the woman is perhaps being overly salty, but you just hit it right there. This is something that's done for commercial purposes. This doesn't really seem to be one of those things where you go around trying to make people feel better, because really when you do an act of kindness, you do it because you don't expect it to be witnessed. This is not, it's sort of like...
do it without the camera, Mike, right? And then you're good.
Well, more importantly, if the camera
Why do you have to put your name on every building on campus? If you're a real big shot who really loves your university... Yeah, I tried to start an endowed chair at Michigan State that was going to be called the People's Chair, where we would get people to donate with the thought that we're not going to put anybody's name on this. It's just going to be there to do some good.
Well, people won't donate then.
It didn't go very far. I'll just tell you that right now.
But at least that's a donation, right? That's money. I mean, if they were just giving flowers, that's what drives me nuts about it. And it's so phony. If the camera wasn't on and that lady dropped her purse and everything spilled out, is this kid is he gonna help pick it up? I mean, that's a random act of kindness.
We really don't know. But what would you think about all like the YouTubers and stuff like that who give out like enormous amounts of money to strangers, and those strangers always seem pretty happy, but I don't hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, this is just for clout. You're just doing."
Well,
this
it is. I mean, make no mistake. I'll say it.
Yeah.
Make no mistake about it. It is about that. It is about it, get attention and getting views. I guess it's better that it's money and people are appreciative of it. But I always, it just sucks. It puts you in this position of always questioning people's motivations, which I don't think we want to be that way in a society. But
like, take for example,
everyone knows when a camera is on them too, and it just drives me up a wall. And people act different.
And that's this woman's complaint, is she didn't know she was on camera. So, and I assume the law in Australia is the same in the United States, where if you're in a public place and you're easily viewed from a public spot that you. Now, the one thing though is in the U.S., if you do a video of someone and it's for commercial purposes where you're trying to profit from it, then you need to get a release. I don't know if that law is different in Australia, but I think we've heard enough. Our Geek is our TikToker and not the kind of salty old Melbourne lady.
Before we move along, though, we should mention two people that are very nice.
Oh, so I on the way over here, I was listening to the radio, and they said that, speaking of people giving people money for no good reason, we want to thank our sponsors who give us money, and we're still not sure why. But on the way over here, I was listening to the radio, and it said, the stock market is up. And I thought, oh, that's great. But last week when I was coming over here listening to the radio, it said, the stock market is down. And I thought, oh, my God, don't do that. Let Luke do that.
Yeah, stop overreacting. Luke's not just going to give you money. He's going to take your money and make it work for you. He's going to make you more money with
He won't give you flowers.
Maybe.
Maybe like a carnation for your lapel. I don't know. He's pretty generous.
A lot of people have been freaking out and asking him, like, what do I do? What if everything goes down to zero? And he says, well, I've seen this before, right? Almost certainly the market's going to, it's going to revert from its lows. It's going to push new highs because that's what the market does, and that's what it's done through American history. So are you positioned to take advantage of this rebound? If you're not, why don't you give Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies a call, 248-663-4748. He'll discuss strategies, equities, bonds, where do you put your money. It also depends on how old you are and where you want your money. If you don't have a plan, call Luke and get a plan, 248-663-4748.
Because when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart. So natural. So natural. It's a gift.
That was really cute.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
And what can we tell you about David Hall? Like Luke, he sponsors the entire Red Shovel Network. He will help you get a mortgage, refinance, take money out of your house. If you're looking for dough, David Hall is the guy to know.
Yeah, it's not always just about refinancing your mortgage. Like you just mentioned, you can get cash out of your house too, because values have really gone up pretty good in the last couple of years. So tap into your home equity, get a cash out refinance from Hall Financial. It's the easiest way to get thousands of dollars. The average Hall Financial client, this is a stat, who did a cash out refinance, got back $55,000. You can do that, pay off high interest credit, student loans, that problem. You can do that, remodel, make your home better so it gains even more money as, you want your home to keep increasing. You want it to keep gaining. Unlock thousands of dollars today. Cash out refinance from Hall Financial at 866-CALL-HALL. That's 866-CALL-HALL, or chat online at callhallfirst.com.
Because when you call Hall, he'll make a good deal for you, sweetheart.
Not so natural.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
So believe it or not, last night I was at the Elton John show.
Oh, you were?
Yes, John Rutherford and I went.
Like you're bearing the lead. How was it?
He had some pretty good tickets, so he said, you want to go to the Elton John show? And I said, I guess your girlfriend can't make it. And it turns out, he said, no, I just think it'd be good to go to the show. And then later on, his girlfriend couldn't make it. But that was fine.
Are you an Elton John fan?
I will tell you, one of the first albums that my brother and I played
Shawn,
was that a
tough question? I just wanted to yes or no.
Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah, sometimes you just, it's simple, Mike. Come on.
Okay, so that was the first album. Are you an Elton John fan, though?
I do like Elton John. I like his music. I'm surprised when you look at all the people he's played with, how many like really hard rock people and just all kinds of characters.
You're going out of your way to
like his music. No, but I mean, this is a guy who I think he's 75. Some of his songs are kind of silly. I mean, Someone Saved My Life Tonight. The refrain is Sugar Bear.
Sure.
I mean, I heard that last night and I had to look up the lyrics. I said,
it's
he
all
really
about,
just say Sugar Bear.
I feel like it's 90% about the lyrics for you with music.
Well, he has nothing to do with that, by the way. He has not written one word. It's all Bernie Taupin. But I mean, he's an old honky-tonk piano player. I mean, one of the things,
man.
One of the things I was reading about him is he was talking about how he liked playing the classics, and he was comparing himself to Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard, and he said Jerry Lee Lewis could really play. Little Richard was more of a pounder, and he said, I'm more of a pounder. I'm not sure I would necessarily agree with all that, but he really does.
Great choice of words.
He really does. That ended up causing a lawsuit with the son. Anyway, he really pounds those 88s, and he is, he's a great musician, and I loved Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and I saw him in Tommy, which was the first time I ever actually saw him moving as opposed to in a cartoon on an album cover. And ever since I was like, this dude is crazy. I think the costumes, I think he's overcompensating for something, but
like the male Lady Gaga.
Yeah, well, it's sure. I was thinking about that because the show went on for over 2 hours. For a 75-year-old guy, he really puts on a show, and his whole band. There must have been about 1,000 years of talent on stage, and that's maybe undercounting, but
that's cool.
But he, I always wonder, is he putting all these costumes on because he's afraid to be the real Elton? I don't want to get too deep with all this, but it was.
I think he just wants to entertain too.
Isn't that the real Elton though? Like they had like a movie with Taron Egerton or whatever his name is, where he had to he used to be just like a regular normal person, but he didn't feel like he was himself. And then once he started doing music and dressing just outrageously, he finally felt like he was really himself.
I think you find that with a lot of artists.
So he's really Donald Duck? Okay. Yeah. You learn something new every day. Well, anyways.
I digress. I'm sorry I asked you about Elton.
Yeah, no. Well, I brought it up because it was, and I did ask John, I said, so Davy Johnstone is his guitar player. He was a guitar player back on Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And he's out there. He looks 100 years old. He's still got the long hair, this bleach blonde. And I said, when you run into these old guitar players like that, is that like their lifestyle? Or is that just sort of a costume? And he said, I think it's kind of a costume. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Tar Heel Chuck says we should check out this classic from The Fix. You know The Fix, you love The Fix, but I don't think you've ever heard this one. It's called Camphor.
It was a feeling like camphor rushing through my tubes, a cooling draft, a rare interlude, drowning depression to admire and trust. Well, who can watch a man making dust to dust? One legal dose of environment, the ballad of a playground swing. There's a lonely dog so misunderstood. He's left his chores to become someone's friend. Things are so enchanting, high on night. Things are so enchanting. Once again to the flash of pines, back to my breathtaking view, where the peaks are so high, full of encouragement, and the pains of the gods kind of cold. Things are so enchanting, I don't lie. Things are where they can't be, I don't lie. About my favorite dream, and adventure not out of bounds. And it dries my eyes to know Mother Earth is not invisible to the hounds. Oh, it pleases me to have a mind on the run when the body is fixed, tied in shoes. Oh, what expression is left to fulfill the game? Just a nod will suffice. Where are you? Things are so enchanting. I love. Things are so enchanting. I am alive.
Rarely will you hear a song named for medicine, but that's camped for by The Fix.
I liked it. Did you like it?
Yeah, it's a little more ethereal than I think of The Fix. You know, it's almost. I kind of feel like when I'm listening to it, I should be at a planetarium or something. You know, because it kind of makes me feel like I'm drifting through the Milky Way. But it's a lot different to me than a lot of their music, where it's got more of a. I think of The Fix as having a strong beat, an edge, and being very, very thoughtful. A lot of the things they sing about are what's going on in the world. Whereas this feels like more of an intimate song. It's almost like a poem to somebody.
Aww.
So,
Shawn, did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. It was nice and moody, soothing.
Shawn, do you want to explain to everyone why you're at home and on Zoom?
Just some house stuff, some contractors that changed at the last minute, but that's okay. They got it done.
What are you getting done? What'd you get done?
Some roofing, some leaks, a little bit of plumbing.
Did you supervise?
Like
you supervised it all?
Yeah, they make you be here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some of them do, right?
Okay.
Well, listen, if they put the heliport in the wrong part of your yard, that's going to be a problem. You want to keep it away from the vineyard. Yeah, and the stables. So I don't blame you for being there.
Yeah, thank you for that.
He looks really pained, doesn't he? I don't know why he looks so pained.
That was lovely. That was lovely.
He always emphasized that his road is unpaved, but the gravel that they have is actually the bones of his opponents that have been ground up.
I thought you were going to say it was, quartz or marble or something. Yeah.
Well, actually, the calcium from the bones does help the quartz and marble and the limestone, come
That's
together.
true.
It's more of a bonding agent, but
Yeah,
that'll
that's
come.
true. No, it's a dirt road and a cinder block house. It's not your Tudor estate.
No, it's not, and I don't have a heliport because you can't land a Sikorsky on a heliport.
No, the servants' quarters are in the way. That's maybe you took those down. You could.
We prefer to think of them as the paid help. But,
okay.
Or the interns, except we don't pay the interns. So Bryant sent $20, so that was cool.
Yeah, that was nice.
I think he might have done it again. I got to check on that. Damn it, we may owe this kid another $20.
If people do want to donate to the interns, mlsolodetroit.com.
That's
donate
right.
button.
Yeah, it's really easy. We'll spread the cheddar. But that's The Fix, room 7609. If you have a song you'd like to hear, something by a new wave artist that didn't get their due, or someone who had something that you love that no one else really seems to appreciate, send us an email at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. You can contact us there anytime. And if you do subscribe to our YouTube channel, you can also leave comments there. We do monitor that kind of thing. So we love to get your feedback. We do not have any donors this week, so we would encourage, some would say grovel, and request that, maybe send us a little something to help support us, and also to support our sponsors. If you do business with Luke Nowacki, or if you do a deal with David Hall, please let them know that you found out about them through the show. Let them know ML sent you. Don't tell them Marc sent you, because they may think it's from the Drew and Mike show or the Charlie the Duff show, because Marc is
anywhere.
He's all over the place. He's sort of the secret sauce. He's sort of like those ground up bones that are holding the limestone, the quartz, the marble,
exactly,
and the gold bricks that take you to Shawn's house.
It's very kind. That's a very kind compliment. Thank you.
So moving on to feedback. Tim writes, "Hey ML, just want to share a few memories of Motown Records and Berry Gordy. If you missed last week's show, please check it out. Mickey Stevenson was our guest, recently inducted in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, which also includes Bernie Taupin and Reg. What do they call him? Elton John.
Reginald. No, not Reginald Denny. That was the guy.
Can we all get along? Yeah.
Boy, whoa.
Yeah.
Why is that the first last name that pops up when I hear Reginald?
But they, I think Taupin and Elton John were in the first or second class of the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Anyways, Mickey Stevens, great, told some amazing stories.
Reginald
about,
Dwight, by the way.
Reginald Dwight. And Marc, I think, just out of curiosity, unleashed one of the greatest Stevie Wonder stories I have ever heard. So please listen to last week's episode. It is well worth your time. Tim listened, and he writes, just want to share a few memories of Motown Records and Berry Gordy. My grandfather was the head of the interior trim department at the Wayne Assembly Plant and was Berry Gordy's boss. My grandfather would tell me stories that Berry would be telling his coworkers about upcoming artists and would bring in records to pass around at the plant, but these records had a plain white label and handwritten info on them. My grandfather had a lot of these at home, and I would play them. I wonder what happened to those records.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, you should wonder and weep if you can't find them. So my uncle went to Inkster High School and hung out with the girl group, the Velvelettes. They were more of a jazz singers. My dad at the same high school would watch Jackie Wilson perform on the top of his car in the parking lot every Friday after school. Now, Shawn asked about Jackie Wilson. So here's somebody telling you a little bit. I think, Shawn, you heard he performed in a fruit truck?
Yeah, but the back of fruit trucks, excuse me.
Yeah,
but, maybe that's not true.
Well, here's somebody saying that he used to perform in Inkster on the top of his car in the parking lot at Inkster High School. So maybe there's the truth lies somewhere in between. He thought, Tim says, thought you'd like to hear this. Love the show, and thank you for the work you do for the city. Speaking of which, last week I had a column on Andre Spivey, which we first talked about this on the show back in January when Andre Spivey was sentenced to prison for his role in a bribery scheme. And there were people on city council, Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri, and some other folks who wrote letters seeking leniency and some outright seeking no incarceration whatsoever for disgraced former councilman Andre Spivey. And so I wrote about that last week in the Free Press because Mr. Spivey started his prison sentence because not only did he get a break, he was allowed to report to prison 6 months later so he could attend his daughter's high school graduation, which I think is nice and a good thing that the judge did. But the column explored the issue of whether or not public officials should use their position to try and help another public official who's betrayed the public trust get a break. And it generated some letters.
Were you surprised at any of the names that signed the letter for Spivey or spoke up on his behalf? Was there any? And I don't know the person, but just based on the position, I'm really shocked that the ombudsman for the city would sign a letter. Aren't they supposed to stay out of stuff like that?
Well, so, and I talked to the ombudsman about this. Bruce Simpson, to his credit, he was one of the public officials who discussed his rationale with me. And he said, my role as the ombudsman is to take complaints from citizens and try and improve city services. I do not regulate city council. Now, he's appointed by city council that position, and it's a 10-year term, and you cannot have a second term. So once you're put in there, your job is really just to do what you have to do. Who cares what city council thinks after that? But I was a little surprised by that. But Bruce Simpson also sent something out under the ombudsman's imprimatur, urging people to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of his grandmother, Barbara Rose Collins, who's a former Detroit city councilwoman who
that's interesting.
Had some trouble when she was in Congress and at different times became a little bit of a subject of ridicule on city council for, wearing a tiara and singing happy birthday to me and stuff like that. But in many ways, she was a pioneer, and I appreciate anybody who wants to honor a loved one. I just think you probably should do that
personally,
privately.
Yeah.
Don't use city resources.
That was the only one that really surprised me. Everyone else I just assumed, but now I know that he has different ties and.
Yeah, it just...
That's what it is.
And 300 people wrote letters. I never suggested for a moment that people should not write letters seeking leniency for somebody they know. The question is, did we elect you to office to try and help crooks get a break?
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you, I know I didn't vote for somebody for that reason, and no one put on their campaign literature, hey, if I get elected and one of my buddies takes a bribe and then tries to get me to take a bribe, I'll try and help him get out of prison. I have not seen that in any literature, and I've been saving political literature for 30 years, so I really don't think that's part of the job
Once
description.
again, if the garbage is getting collected and streets are getting plowed and, the lights get turned on, then people look the other way.
Why was the reprieve for 6 whole months, though? Why didn't they just, put him in jail and let him out for a day for his daughter's graduation and put him back? Why'd they say, oh, you know what, we'll just delay this by 6 months? What could he do? What kind of damage could he do in 6 months?
Yeah, well, he was off the city council, so there's that. But I think, I don't know the answer. It's a good question, because sometimes they'll let somebody out for bereavement if a loved one dies. But I think in this case, it was white-collar crime. He's no threat to the public. He's no longer in a position to betray the public. And I think there's probably just a simple logistical issue of you put somebody in a box and you got to let him out. You got to get him on Con Air to get from, he's in Morgantown, West Virginia to Detroit. Then you got to get him back. It's just a hassle for everybody. So it didn't reduce the amount of time he's going to serve. It just means he starts it later. So I think it was one of those things where, what the hell? Why should we traumatize the kid any more than she already has been by having the old man admit he's a rat and then let him go to graduation. So got a lot of feedback on that. Ken says it sucks that you lost that city council race, but it honestly seems the campaign experience has made you a keener writer. Dare I say, reinvigorated you. I say that because it's easy for men and women our age, especially empty nesters, to coast professionally as we stare at the clock and wait for retirement. But you've become more astute, more acerbic, and less tolerant of the disgusting Detroit and Lansing BS which constituents have basically become numb to. There's a distinct feistiness and punch in your writing, a je ne sais quoi, if you will, which is French for I don't know what, that makes the new column a must-read, Godspeed, and go green.
I love how into it you get when somebody's talking about how good a writer you are.
Well, I mean, I don't know how good a writer I am. I certainly wrote a lot, but the difference is, and Shawn can speak to this, when you're a reporter, you just write the facts and you let them speak for themselves. When you're a columnist, you can kind of say, and here's another crazy thing that maybe you didn't think about. So yeah, I think it's the gig. Well, here's another view to this column. Your article relative to Judge Victoria Roberts and black politicians I found and believed to be very appalling, disrespectful, insulting, and definitely reflects your track record of degrading, insulting, and using black people for your gain. Obviously, you have little to no knowledge of the judicial system. However, you feel free to accuse, label, or insult black people. I believe just for your own gain, but also to shape a narrative relative to this upcoming election. No wonder folks chose not to reply or respond to your request for comment. I don't know what that's referring to. Folks know your history and how you operate, and definitely, I believe they know your disdain mentally relative to black people. What's telling is I don't believe you ever talked about, what's-his-name, former Councilman G. Leland, walking without penalties, never any in-depth specific opinions or articles relative to this current administration. I believe your biases and media influence is telling, and many people are aware. Unfortunately, I believe you get a pass every day just for being white. Why not talk about that and passes you give to other white elected officials, so-called leaders, etc.? Is this corruption? Clearly, I believe your efforts lack any true intellect and true journalism.
Well, that letter loses all its punch when it says the line about, I don't think you ever talked about Gabe Leland.
Yeah, so there was an entire section on about that other.
I mean, some people, right, Shawn, would say you talk too much about Gabe Leland.
Yeah, and
no, I would never say that.
And people who have been following this show know that when I was a candidate, I spoke out against Gabe Leland. I called for him to be removed from city council, for him to be imprisoned, and basically everything but put on a spaceship to be blasted into a black hole. So,
I'm blown away by that feedback.
Well, this is what I get a lot, where people who have no idea what I've written or have even read what I've written send me something about that written and accuse me of racism, when I guess I would suggest that assuming that I've done all these things because of the way I look, well, that feels to be a little ironic. When city council wouldn't say anything about Gabe Leland, I exposed Gabe Leland. I'm the one who brought out the secret tapes of Gabe Leland taking a bribe. So, I'm the one who exposed his dad, Bert Leland. I'm the one who exposed any number of politicians of any party, of any race, of any gender. I even did a story showing that a state Supreme Court justice who is white and whose heritage is from Malta was not going to work. So I guess I'm anti-Maltese as well. But this is why politicians get away with this, because they count on people to rally to what somebody looks like or what party they belong to or where they're from, instead of saying that I don't care who you are or what you look like. If you take this job, you serve us first and exclusively. And whether you're a nice person or a bad person, if you break the rules, you got to pay the piper.
Amen.
Sean?
Amen.
Oh.
What about the Hathaways? Are they white?
Oh, I forgot about Nicholas Bobek Hathaway,
or whatever his name might be right now.
Yeah, he's a white dude.
Oh, it's crazy.
But
was this
from
comment,
Grosse Pointe?
Was this comment in response to an article, or was it a comment for the show talking about an article?
No, this was an email that was sent in response to my column that ran last Sunday talking about Andre Spivey, and really just saying this isn't about Andre Spivey. This is about, should public officials use their position to try and get a break for another public official when that public official has betrayed their trust? And in doing some more research and going back through all this stuff, one of the things I found is that Andre Spivey was either trying to set up council members for the feds or was trying to get council members to take bribes. It's not clear whether he was working with the feds at that point or not, but at some point he offered to help the feds with whatever he could help them with. So you have a guy who's either trying to corrupt the rest of city council or trying to get the rest of city council busted to save his own ass. And some of those same city council members are writing letters seeking leniency for him, which to me is just crazy. And now that I'm a columnist, I can write that, which maybe is what Ken is tuning into. But I mean,
and most of the comments,
isn't that nuts?
Yeah, most of the comments on the story are happy that you did this work. I wasn't sure what your column was going to be like, but I'm pleasantly surprised.
It didn't blow?
No. I think you've pointed out a lot of bullshit in local politics.
Well, and the idea about this is to really show people how things work and to give them an opportunity to feel the way they feel, like this.
Do you ever worry about the blurring of reporting and being a columnist? Because it's all, sometimes we see that on cable news, how that gets blurred. Do you ever worry about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think every reporter should always worry about whether people think the facts they're presenting are really just their opinion. But in these columns, one reason why they're so long is because they're so full of facts. They're so full of research and things that, the people involved have actually admitted to. And then I comment on them. And then sometimes I'll fill some things. And sometimes I'll just offer some thoughts. Like in this one, I said, hey, my mom always says you should forgive people. And I think that's great. But I'm not sure I could forgive somebody who tried to set me up with the FBI.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the point where I just say, I'm not that big a person that I can do that. But
Marc,
I also
I would make the point that columnists often report. And so sometimes we conflate reporting with breaking news or getting a scoop or something like that. So Mike's column is a reported column. There are lots of columns that are reported out there. So I think that's allowed him to do what he's always done in terms of finding out information, but now he's just a lot freer to say what he thinks about that information, which has been great for him and for the Free Press so far. And I think it'll just continue to get better.
Sean has always admired my column, and he likes my writing.
It's true. It's completely true.
Is it?
But
I
don't
feel
think
that way about Sean?
anything.
There was a double entendre, but we'll just.
I caught it.
No, he doesn't need. He doesn't need to.
Nicholas O'Sullivan inquires, "Hi, Michael. I'm writing to you as I believe.
Writing to believe.
We may be related, as I came across some photos and letter from a visit you made to Ireland in 1991. If this makes sense to you and would like to discuss further, then please feel free to mail me back. Looking forward to hearing from you." Yes, that's my cousin Nicholas, and if it's the Nicholas I'm thinking of, they gave up the farmland in Kerry that wasn't very productive for some lush land in Cork, and we spent a very pleasant evening or afternoon visiting with Nicholas and his family. And I will tell you, when you visit people in Ireland, everybody serves you tea, which means even if you just left somebody's house where they served you a very nice meal, the next person has to serve you a nice meal because the Irish are consummate hosts, some of the most gracious people you will ever meet. And I was at Nicholas's house, if this is the Nicholas I'm thinking of, and we were looking at some photos of my parents from their wedding, because this probably would have been, the only thing they had of my parents being married, because they weren't married very long. And we're looking at them like, oh, I've never seen these before, all that kind of thing. And my buddy who was traveling with me said, hey, what's the date on this? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, look at the date your parents were married. And I said, yeah. And he said, look at the date you were born. I said, okay. I understand now. So lots of things learned.
Oh. I think there might have been
it was the late 60s.
Shotgun?
Everybody's Catholic.
Okay, I got you.
So I learned a lot. I learned a lot at Cousin Nick's cottage there in Cork. But
and to echo what you said, I've been fortunate enough to be in a lot of different countries. There's no group of people more hospitable than the Irish.
Yeah,
that's what I found. They were phenomenal. I'd love to go back there.
Yeah, if they have they have a crust of bread, they're splitting it with you.
The Greeks were a close second.
The Greeks are very friendly.
They were incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was expecting, but they were really great.
Well, I was working on a story for the Free Press in Greece where I met some Iraqis who had just gotten out of Iraq, and the Free Press assigned me to talk to refugees from the Gulf War, and they put me in touch with some Iraqis who had relatives here in America. They had just gotten to Greece. They were not there from the Gulf War. It took them a while to get there from the Iran-Iraq War, and that's what they were fleeing. But I will just tell you this. Those folks, incredibly generous, incredibly gracious, and we hear a lot about foreigners being bad and, this and that. I got to tell you, folks, if you've never expanded your horizons, man, you are missing a lot, because there are some wonderful people out there. And then there's Putin. And our intern Patrick is reciprocated. Right, yeah. This young man who's miserably compensated by this show took Ukrainian refugees to Cedar Point and fed them horrible food.
Yeah, they had like these little this taco stand, but there were no shells for the tacos. They had Doritos instead. It was like a taco bag.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A walking taco. Yeah.
Oh, is that what it's called? A walking taco? I ordered a taco.
Usually Fritos, not Doritos, but yeah.
Yeah, I ordered a taco, and I was like, can I get a hard shell? And they were like, what the hell are you talking
about? Get out of here, foreigner.
And
so now on the ride home, Patrick is telling Artur, who we now know does speak English, he's like, I know you guys have been through a lot, but I just got a taco without a shell, so I don't want to hear you crying about
Well, I also
Russians,
got a flat tire on the drive home. Did I tell you about that bit?
You did, but we only have an hour before we got to wrap up the show.
Oh.
No, you got a flat tire and...
Yeah, there was somebody...
And you made Valeria fix it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. No, we were on the Pike in Ohio at about midnight, and when you get a flat tire, you start to hear your tire go. Blah, 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 blah. So I pulled over, and my tire was flat, but there was no slash mark or anything. Like there was no cut in the tire. It
was the Russians.
Yeah, it was the damn
You're capping.
Russians.
You're capping.
And I called AAA. It took forever for them to get there. And it turns out that there was like a screw dug deep into my tire.
That'll do it.
Yeah, and it had just been slowly losing air for like the first 20 minutes of the ride.
Wait, can we edit this out?
No.
So you got screwed twice. No hard shell, and then the screw in your tire.
I'm much more upset about the damn taco.
Change?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, Shawn.
Well, I do know how to change a tire, but I didn't have a jack in my car.
Why not?
Because I didn't have one.
You actually, what the hell did you do when you took the jack out of the car? Because the car comes with a jack, so you actually took the jack out of the car to do what with it?
I don't have a jack in my car.
No, what'd you do with it though?
I never had one in the first place.
So you bought a car with no jack?
No. Or yes, I didn't buy the car. I got it from my grandfather.
Some cars.
That jack
it's got a collection of jacks.
Well, I think we have one in our house, but I just didn't have one in the car because me and my grandmother both have a car. I know my brother also has a car, and we have one jack between the three of us, and obviously that stays in my grandmother's car.
So some of these new cars don't come with a jack or a spare, but I don't know if this qualifies, and we should probably move on. I expected Shawn to say you shouldn't have tried to change that tire unless it wanted to change.
True.
To take the side of the tire. Maybe it was just expressing itself.
Don't be mean to Shawn.
Or maybe you just want to help the tire by changing it, So you could look at it that way.
I've been waiting for Shawn to comment on my T-shirt. For being a non-judgmental person, he's always judging whether I'm wearing the appropriate attire for this show. So I thought with him being otherwise occupied, I'd wear my Sisters of Mercy T-shirt today.
No, I just haven't seen it. Like
Shawn's coming with the heat today.
You're not on my screen, so I'm in your T-shirt though.
Okay, well that's great. I only see your ear. I don't know who's framing up your shot, but it's
we're not on video anymore. So
no, we're not. So I'm over next to the microphone. The Yeti.
Okay, all right. Some people call it a Sasquatch.
Okay, whatever
Jesus
you say.
Christ.
So what's coming up on? I heard Kalina was on the Carlos and Shawn podcast last week.
How'd she do?
She did great.
I was listening back to last week's show. Yeah, there's he's a big tease.
What happened on the show?
No, we're trying to wrap this up. So I'm trying to give. Periods are our friends right now.
Yeah, I think Shawn wants to test that new plumbing.
She did great.
So one of the things, listening back to last week's show, I think we were, and I'll take the main responsibility. We may have dismissed a little too quickly some of her concerns about the Pac-12 coming into the Big Ten with the travel.
How so?
Well, because I was thinking about, obviously there's going to be a lot more money from the TV contract, and so immediately you're saying, no, there's travel problems and there's going to be more money. But what she was talking about. And I,
the non-revenue sports.
Yeah, I'm such a knucklehead for wanting to talk and not listen more. I think she's absolutely right. If the women's rowing team, if they're giving them a hard time about going to Wisconsin, and I don't know that they are, but I'm sure they're trying to save money wherever they can, they're sure as hell not going to want to fly them out to L.A. And I hope that when this money comes in from the bigger, greater Big Ten network TV contract, that some of it does trickle down to these sports who are already challenged to justify their existence. I mean, Michigan State tried to break down, I think, the diving team or the swim team and claiming costs. I mean, if you're having trouble paying the bills for those teams traveling within the Midwest, and now you say, oh, now we got to go out to L.A., I think a lot of those smaller sports may be in danger. And I hope that Shawn and the team at the Free Press will keep an eye on that, because I would hate to see this just be a bonanza for the revenue sports and these other sports that really have, I think, the kind of student athletes that are more traditional student athletes are going to get screwed.
I took it easy on her on the podcast a little bit because she talked about the rule. They bus everywhere, right? So obviously they can't bus to California. And I sort of politely suggested, well, you're not going to play USC and UCLA then, and that's fine. And she at some point tried to make the point that, look, I would have been at Michigan State otherwise, without the scholarship. But it wasn't just the money. There's also sometimes the grade issues. And we talked a lot about, Michigan in that respect too. But from my perspective, and we can do this on another show, a lot of those sports I would get rid of. Take those scholarship money where you don't also have to include travel money and accommodation and all that sort of thing, and give them to people who don't have the money but do have the grades that are all right. There are a lot of people like that I think as a society we'd rather have in our society. No offense to Kalina, who she's adore her and she's smart and I'm glad she's at Michigan State. But I mean, it just as a larger societal point, who do we want in our universities, right?
I want well-rounded people, and if some are student athletes, I want them there. That's why I don't like this paying athletes, because they're not student athletes anymore. They're minor leaguers.
But do you want them
and
there?
Here you are trying to take more student athletes off campus. You don't care about student athletes. You care about trying to make athletically gifted people rich.
I care about students. You care about the hyphen and whatever comes after that. Come on.
I just care about the athletes.
The reality is it's about money, period.
Yeah.
I know you want it to be about students.
Stop going to football games, Mike. Stop. You're supporting this, as Marc would point out, this apparatus. You're supporting it.
We also supported the women's rowing team athlete with our NIL sponsorship. So
okay. All right.
That's what heroes do.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Homelander.
I did get to the end of that, by the way. Wow.
They need to keep Ryan out of the finales.
Which Ryan?
Huh? Yeah. Ooh.
Ryan, the Homelander's son.
Oh yeah. Well, I think
he seems to be the focal point of all of the finale episodes, even though he was barely even in the season.
Well, because if they get people to follow him, they can do 50 series until he gets to be ancient. But I knew Butcher screwed up when he walked out on the kid. I knew that was going to come back to bite him.
Spoiler alert, jeez.
I mean,
that happened
like
several episodes.
I'm just kidding.
Almost 2 months
Jesus
ago.
Christ.
Yeah.
But
Anyway, there you go. Club sports. That's the answer. All right.
Dude, you saw like the very last thing.
He is
though,
so
right?
mad at that comment.
I'm going to club your ass, and then that'll be my sport next time I see you.
That was a great comment, Sean. I second it.
Hey, ML, in the last scene, did you
Which was
notice
the-
that
which
there
was
was a
the
guy
comment?
in like a Viking outfit, like from the January
yeah.
6th, right?
Yeah, the QAnon shaman. Yeah,
that was hilarious.
terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
What was that, Mark?
No, that's a good point. Let's just make them all club athletes then.
Yeah, and then Mike can go get his little football fix and
They can still
occasional
be
hockey
student
fix.
athletes.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen with Kalina, who also, I believe, had a scholarship offer from the University of Wisconsin. You're going to have a very smart, talented Michigan resident who we want to keep to fight the brain drain, and you're basically saying, go somewhere else because we're not going to support you financially because your sport is basically just fun. And those
we're
club
saying
athletes...
come to Michigan State because you're a good student. You want to come there.
But
and
the
you can row in
financial
the
part
club.
was part
and
of
you
it.
Can row in the club, which, by the way, she's not rowing anymore, right? So you can come, be a student, and row in a rowing club.
So let me tell you just, we're going long, but let me just tell you a little something about club sports. They cost money. They pay coaches. They have travel. They have uniforms. The club athletes now pay out of their pocket, and they fundraise for those sports. And some of those athletes are just as talented as a first-round draft pick in a different sport, and you're saying you're a great athlete, you're a good student, you're in the wrong sport, give me some money, other knucklehead, here's $1 million, stay here for a year, get the hell out. It's craziness. It's crazy.
What's craziness are the thousands and thousands and thousands of kids who are plenty smart enough and have some grades and have no access to universities because they're not an athlete. That's what's crazy.
That's a good point, too.
But you also argue that athletes are a way for people to get an opportunity. Athletics are a way for people to get an opportunity. Wouldn't have one otherwise. You're now arguing that's insane.
No,
if
I'm
you
not
want a
saying that.
diverse
That was
campus,
that
you should
was
have
Selena's
student
point.
athletes as well as athletes.
How many Michigan State rowing events have you been to?
Me?
Yeah.
This year?
Or volleyball.
Ever. Or volleyball or tennis.
Or diving. Or tennis. Or field hockey.
Or anything that's not one of the core four sports.
I've been to wrestling. I've been to baseball. I would go to the volleyball if it wasn't right after the football games and I got to get either back home or...
Oh,
yeah, because people go to volleyball games.
But it's football that brought you to campus.
That aren't
Volleyball?
parents.
No. The journalism program brought me to campus. That just had to be something...
I mean, that day, you said after the football game.
Yeah, I mean, because it's also where I'm going to see a lot of my friends. Because while I may care about the other sports, and you'll see me at all the women's golfing events.
Yeah, right. But you see the point.
Did you play pickup?
If they're held across the street from a bar.
Where'd you play hockey when you were at state? Did you play on campus?
I played intramural hockey, and I was terrible. But I played.
Well, there you go.
I played Air Force football. I played softball. I played basketball.
Yeah,
terrible
on campus. And that was great. That's a great experience. That's
yeah,
awesome.
but I didn't go there for that. If I was a good athlete and a good student, I would want that person to be at Michigan State. And if we had to give them some financial incentive to get there, I think that's fair. I just think to turn these non-revenue sports into club sports, you're penalizing some of our most talented college students.
Well, we'll get them there in other ways. We'll get them there for other reasons, for other interests, for whatever they want to study and go contribute to society. It's only like the rest of the world does this, right? We're the only ones that do this. We're the only ones that attach sports to universities that way, which is why we're in the mess we're in right now.
Yep.
I agree with you. It is a mess.
And
it's not fair. Anyway.
I heard Sean say he agrees with me. So Cyrus, take us out.
Is that really it?
Cyrus!
Oh, okay.
The end.
Jeez.
Can you dig that? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Tune in again for more transcribed thrills and adventure. Rocket millions of light years into space with
ML, the Soul of Detroit.
The